Hello everyone and happy 1st of November. We're definitely really into fall now, but I'm ready to start on some Christmas stuff. So I have a winter file for you. We're gonna make this cute little sled. It has the deer and all the little detail in the bow. Can you see it, Mom? We're gonna learn a new painting technique on the sides here to make the galvanized steel look of the sled. Can you see that, Mom? Okay, all right. So your packaging is a little different this month because in order to fit this in here, we had to use a bag. So the pieces are a little bit bigger than normal. I've pre-painted some of the stuff so the video won't last too long for you guys. So you'll have 2 big sled pieces, the deer head, and then all the little stuff for the bow. And then the string to attach it as well. So to start off with, you want to stain. You have pieces that come in a board like this. You're not going to need this outside piece for anything except for helping you space when you go to glue it. So this outside piece doesn't need to be stained, but we've taped it in the back for you. And I've left mine white like this so you can kind of see the difference when we're doing the video. But then just take your baby wipe and the lighter brown color you have, the brown oxide, and stain this piece. You're also going to stain this spacer, which you won't really see, but just in case you don't get it glued on just right, if you go ahead and stain it, then you won't see it. And then this bigger sled portion, you're going to want to stain this as well. So kind of a faux wood look for all this stuff. Next, you're going to take your foam brush and your black paint. Under our galvanized steel is a black color, so you're going to paint this black. I did 2 coats, so I did a coat of black, sanded it a little bit just to get the little fibers that stick up off, and then repainted it. You're also going to paint this little black steel piece and the top of your sled. So you'll notice the difference in these. So the one that's brown has these little scored marks in the middle, and it's bigger. The black one that you want to paint black is a smaller piece. So those are kind of your bases. And you will also have these little black, let me show you compared to them. There's 4 bolts. And see, they're bigger. These are berries. The bigger ones are the bolts. And they'll be together in a set of 4. You want to paint those black also. You can either use your foam brush still, or you can take a makeup wedge like we usually use and do the little pouncing method and paint them. But we're going to use these as bolts, where our bolts would be in our sled. Okay, so let's get painting here. I've pre-painted this base of the deer white. I also gave you a foam brush to paint this because it's a bigger surface. You don't have to worry about getting the sides white because they're going to be covered. If you get them white, fine. If you don't, no problem. However, there is this little portion down here at the bottom that peeks out of the bow. So you definitely want to make sure you get this white down here on the very bottom piece. Can you see that? Good. Okay. Right down here in the bottom piece. So after you have it painted white, you're going to, I'm gonna like lightly sand it just to get any, because I'm going to shade it. You don't have to, but we're gonna leave all the shading to the end though, because I'm gonna shade this and the leaf. So, but because you're gonna shade it, you want to make sure you have it sanded. And then now mine's dry and I'm going to set that off to the side. I'm going to start with, this is your next piece on your bow. So make sure you have it go in the right direction so you know what side you're painting. Because on this piece we're going to paint the leaves and the stems because our bow sits on top of this. It's kind of a backer piece to help hold everything together. Okay, so you're going to use your basil. It's kind of like an olive green color. And we'll brighten it up later with a little bit of, I know it's not, I just like the way it went together with the red. And I used a darker, kind of a cranberry red for the other stuff. So you're going to take one of your makeup sponges and just get some paint. Dab your excess off. And paint your leaves. You don't need to worry about if it gets on the bow area, but you do want to kind of actually go into the bow area a little bit so you make sure there's no spacage where there's extra covered. Or I'm sorry, uncovered that you would see. Really doesn't take very much paint at all. And we'll come back and do a second coat, but we'll do the stems in between. Okay, so you got your leaves painted. We're gonna let that dry for a minute, and we're gonna take a smaller sponge we're gonna use to paint these branches. For the branches, you're gonna use your darker brown, which is that burnt umber color we use a lot. I just used a different color for the staining because I thought it was a little warmer for this time of the year. It wouldn't be so dark. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna take and I'm gonna dab off the excess paint that's on my sponge. And I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna get all my leaves. You don't have to worry about the little berry spots because your berries more than cover them. So don't worry that you're getting them brown. But it's important that you paint this piece in layers, that you don't glue it together first, because or else it's really hard for you to get everything painted and not get paint on the other pieces. Oops, I think I just painted a leaf. So notice here on the side, there's that little leaf that peeks through. I'll come back and paint green over that. It's just right here on the, it's small, so you might miss it. Stuff's sticking to me. Of course, as a maker, I'm already making Christmas ornaments, so I'm already in the Christmas spirit, even though today's Halloween. I've never really been a big Halloween decorator. I do decorate for fall, but I try to give you guys stuff ahead of time so you have plenty of time to get it painted and displayed. Plus, if I start Christmas in November, then we have time for two Christmas items. Okay, so we have one coat on each of those. I'm gonna go back to the green and I'm gonna lightly sand it. And be careful on these because the leaves break easily. So you want to make sure you're holding it down and just kind of sanding it nice and easily. I usually either blow it off or use a brush or something to paint it, to dust off the sanding stuff. We're gonna come back and paint another color, another coat, unless you like it the way, you know, that sanded look. I know I use that for a lot of stuff. I don't know if I got that. Oh, I guess I did get it green in my other one. I just didn't realize. Didn't remember. I don't always do it all in one day, so it's easy for me to forget. Mom, do you want to turn that TV off? Sorry, I left the TV on in the living room and you guys can probably hear it in the background. I don't really watch it, but I kind of leave it on for noise usually when I'm crafting. I watch a lot of DIY stuff. Okay, all right, so we have two coats on our green, so that's good for that. We're done with that part. Now, I'm gonna sand my brown pieces a little bit. It's not as important to sand those because we're not gonna do any shading or anything on them. It's just kind of a habit for me. And the same thing, be really careful. Sanding them, go with the direction of the stem because it will be easy to damage them. And go back on our little brown sponge. And you can always use one of your paintbrushes to do these, but I really like the texture and the cover I get from the sponges. And I don't get so much paint down the sides of my project by using a sponge opposed to a brush. I'm going to start posting. I will send a video and post in our little group. Any of you that have been getting the interchangeable pieces for the farm signs, or if you want interchangeables, you can get them from me at any time, any of the ones I've posted. I'm going to get some Christmas ones posted. I have like 3 ready. I have 1 more that I want to do, and then I will send you those, and hopefully then I can have them cut and out to you guys by the middle of November, that gives you guys plenty of time to get them painted for Christmas. If you're like me, I'm decorating for Christmas the day after Thanksgiving. I think some people even beat me to it and decorate before Thanksgiving. I have a friend that gets her Christmas tree ready and then they decorate it on Thanksgiving Day. I thought that was pretty cool. A neat idea. Everybody's already together. It's not often that all my kids are under one roof now that they're all grown except for Connor. So, looks like I got a little bit of brown on my green leaf. This pesky little leaf that sticks out here. You might need to take your little brush, stick it in there and get that. Okay, we got it all fixed. So, there's what your base should look like with your leaves and your branches painted. Can you see it good, Mom? Okay. Now we're going to set that aside and let it finish drying, and we're going to move on to our bow. Like paintbrushes attached here. So I took my bow apart because I wanted it two colors. I wanted the outside to be the gray color that we used in the galvanized steel method I'm going to show you, and the inside to be the red. So I carefully untaped mine, but I kept it together so I knew which piece went where, because they're not symmetrical, so each side is a little different. So now there's that side, and I'm going to do the same over here. Okay, so now we have two sides of our bow. I'm going to set that aside for a minute, and I'm going to paint the base of my bow, which, if I remember right, it looks upside down the way it goes, but it's not. So this is the direction your bow faces. This is the top, okay? I'm going to take the silver. It's called Tin Lizzie. And now if you wanted to use the metallic-y color on this, you could. I didn't. The metallic grays that you can get are silvers. Most of them are not very dark. So I always mostly paint a coat of gray underneath of it unless I'm just using it for shading. So I just took my makeup sponge and a little bit of paint, dabbed my excess off on the sides because I don't want paint going down the sides of my bow, my outsides. The insides is not quite as important, but the outside is. I'm also going to be posting on my page personalized ornaments. Last year I was doing personalized ornaments up until Christmas. This year I'm going to try to cut it off by December 1st. If I have more room, I'll open it back up. But my son is taking leave from the Navy. He should be home from December 15th through the 1st of January. So I want to make sure I can spend time with him. So I don't want to be working. At this time of the year I work long days getting everything painted, and so I don't want to be doing that while he's here. Especially being in the Navy, when he goes, a lot of times they're off the shore, so I can't see him, talk to him. It's not like I can just go drive and see him. He's out at sea for 9 months. So I'm going to let that dry for a minute. I have one coat on it. I'm going to let it dry before I put a second coat on there. Now I'm going to take my insides of my bow and my cranberry red here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a sponge, dip it in there, get the excess. I kind of just get the excess off on the side of my tray. I reuse my trays. You can see I have tons of paint on there of different colors. This, it doesn't matter quite so much if it goes down the sides. The first coat looks a little pink. I was worried about the color I had picked out, but once you get a second coat on there, it doesn't look pink anymore. I'm going to do some wine glass ornaments, and I wanted to use this color for that too. Hush. So I try to, oops, I have like jute pieces all over the place. Okay, so we'll set those aside. When you're doing the sponge painting, everything dries quick. So we're going to go back to our outside piece of our bow. If you get any little fibers like this, I don't know if you can see that. So see how the little fibers kind of sticking up there on my bow? after I'm done painting it, I'll take a piece of sandpaper and just really carefully go over that to kind of smooth that out and break that off, so so you don't see it in your presentation, like when you're done with your project. But since I already got it wet, I'm going to finish painting that coat on there, and then I'll just do a light third coat to kind of cover up where I had to sand. Okay. Now we're going to do a second coat on our red, the insides of our sponges here. And if there's, like, I did some Vet Tech ornaments for an office for, I guess it was Vet Tech Week a couple weeks ago. If you need a certain ornament that you're looking for and you haven't seen it on my page, I do lots of special requests, so there might be somebody else that likes it. Send me a message. I'm happy to try. I'll tell you if it's not something I can do. My mind kind of goes crazy with ideas. I have a list 10 miles long of things I want to make for Christmas, and I'll never get them all done, you know, so I just save them for next year. I can make Christmas all year long. Okay, so I'm going to find my piece of sandpaper. There it is. And I'm going to sand these little pieces on my gray bow that we're sticking at. But again, very carefully, because these pieces are small. Most of the things you could glue back together if you were to break it, but try to just kind of go with the grain and fly in here. Okay. So we'll do one light kind of last coat on there. It wouldn't really need 2 coats if I had sanded it in the first place. I mean, it wouldn't need 3 coats. 2 coats would have been fine. And I'm also, this year, I didn't do these last year because I thought about it too late. I'm doing some advent calendars or countdown to Christmas calendars. I have a Disney one. I just made one for my oldest daughter. I gave it to her yesterday for her birthday. She just moved into her own house. Not, you know, so they have a lot of room now, so she can decorate her own Christmas stuff. Of course, there's helicopters, so my dogs are going to keep wanting to bark. They must be spraying in the fields over here. All right. I think we got that covered good. I thought I did a lot of the pre-painting before, but never fails. I still have a lot to paint with you guys on here. I try to be as quick as I can. I'm going to do 3 coats on my bow because I like it dark. So I'm going to... And if you do a heavy coat to get it dark like that, it's just messy. So I'd rather do 3 light coats and everything's really like even and smooth on the painting. Of course, there's a fly in here. I'll be so glad once it freezes once and the flies are gone. Between the dog and the toddler, my grandson, there's always flies. I feel like I'm always killing flies because they leave the front door open. Okay. All right, so our bow's all painted. That parts of it, we're going to set it aside. Oh, I forgot. We have the center of our bow here, so I'll paint that real quick. Same thing. It's 2 pieces. Doesn't want to come apart there. There you go. So it's 2 pieces like that. So I'll paint those real quick. And at the same time, I'm going to paint our berries. So I'm going to paint our berries the same red color. And I would leave them on the tape to paint them. It's much easier. And now I did the same thing on these. I did 3 coats. This is the outside piece to the center of our bow, so I'm going to color that there. All right. We'll set these aside. We'll go back and do another coat in a minute. We can go ahead and put this part of our bow together. Okay, so you have the base of your bow, you have the inside red pieces, and then you have the outside of your bow. Lay it on here again and make sure you have it going the right direction. Put some glue, and remember, a little of this glue goes a long way, so you don't want it squeezing out over the sides. And I kind of try to focus on getting glue in the middle and just getting a little bit of glue on the outsides, because it's not like you're harshly, moving this sled around. I also have some kits I posted of my grandson I made for him for Christmas. I'm going to post them on our Facebook page first in our small group and see if anybody likes them and see what you guys think. I might make some for the little vendor events. I'm going to do the one when Santa comes downtown here in Arbuckle. I'll also be at Grinzella's in the middle of November. I don't do a lot of shows this time of the year because I get so many custom orders that I just don't have time to keep up with both. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue in all the spaces. I just do one side at a time. This fly is going to drive me nuts. And I have the wrong side, I think. Oh, I have it turned upside down, maybe. There you go. Okay, now there's two. My mom's going to try to get him with a fly swatter. I suck at that. I swear I hit the fly and I don't end up killing him. So I'm going to stop for a second and I'm going to run back and do another coat on these. Just so you guys aren't waiting around for me to finish that. And we want to make sure we have 3 coats on them so they match the other part. Okay. All right, so now we're going to glue this side. What I would recommend is making sure you have it going the right direction first, unlike I did on the first one, and then I just put a little bit of glue in these little holes. I have not been able to get any more of this stick fast glue on Amazon, so I'll show you the other glue that I've been using and it works really good. The only difference is it gives you a little bit more time to move things, so for videos like this, I want it to stick right away. I don't want to have to sit there and let it dry, and that you have to kind of sit there and let it dry. So it sticks very well, but it's just not as fast as this is. It's this tight bond, quick and thick. And it also dries clear, and there is a nice thing about this, it doesn't stick your fingers together like the stick fast does. But this is the stick fast. I still love it. It sticks things really quick and simple to use. We're going to do one last color on our red berries and bow over here. Okay. And I'm going to carefully put them on. I recommend you wait till they dry, but for video sake purposes. Okay, so I know it seems weird, but your leaves go up, not down. So they go up. So you want it facing you and your leaves kind of facing up. Can you see, Mom? You're going to take your little berries and you're going to put one on each of these little spots that has a berry. So what I do is I just go, I'll just pick 2 of them and I'm just going to put a little dot of glue on there. Couple more, or I'll do all, there's 3 more, and then we'll do the clusters. The clusters aren't marked, so it's kind of where you want to put them. I'll show you where I put them. And then you'll be able to see in the picture too. So now you have all your single berries on, so you see all the little places that had the round pieces are covered, and we had painted them brown, but you can't see it. And now our 3 berry clusters are going to go up here towards the top is where I put mine. You can, of course, put them wherever you want. I put mine kind of like this, and I try to do them both in different directions. Can you see it good, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about getting the fall signs out to you guys so late. I had to have a gallbladder surgery, like emergency surgery from the emergency room, so I didn't have time to plan that out very well. So it took me a bit to get them out to you. I messed that up a little bit there, so I'm just going to take this sponge and touch it up. Okay. So there's how I have my bow, and there's where all your little red pieces go. Now I'm going to put the center of my bow on. It is not the same on the top and bottom, but it doesn't matter how it goes. It's just however you like it. I'm just going to check this though and make sure I have them both going the right direction. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take the outside piece first and put some glue on it, and we're basically just covering up this middle right here. I did mine kind of flush to the top and then let the bottom hang over. So I did mine kind of flush to the top right in there, and then I let the bottom hang over. There you go. So there's your finished bow that you're going to put on your deer. In fact, well, we'll shade first before we put it on. We'll go back and do the shading at the end. So we're not going to glue these together yet, but I'm just going to set them together off to the side. But you can see there where at the bottom how you see the white piece, that's the piece you want to make sure you get painted when you're doing your deer. So next we're going to do the galvanized steel. So you want, can you hand me my bubble wrap right there, Mom? This such expensive tool of bubble wrap. I suggest using a clean tray or a bigger space. You don't want to use something like how I have my mess going on here, because now that I have red paint on my fingers, it gets a little bit sticky. So you can use a paper plate, a piece of foil, anything. So I put a little bit of my silver paint, and it's so hard to get just a little bit of the gray paint out of this bottle, because you really don't need very much. I like to start with the little and then kind of work my way up. And this is kind of going to be how you like it. So if you want it more covered, less covered, I did mine and then I kind of let it dry. So you just have your little square piece here. You're going to take them and kind of crumple them up in the center so you have this. And then I dipped it in my gray and kind of sponged it off over here. Did it in my silver and kind of sponged it off the same. And then you just kind of go at it. You don't really want it to look like dots, so you just kind of move it around. I did kind of a light coat first and then came back and did more. We'll do these 2 small pieces too. But I thought it was really fun. And it's just something different, you know? And there's a lot of ways to get the metallic feel, but a lot of them use kind of chemicals that's hard for me to pass along to you guys in your boxes. So I'm still just dipping in these two colors and kind of mixing them together and off on the sides. A lot of people probably have bubble wrap just like laying around. If you're like me, we all live out in the middle of nowhere here. You know, I'm constantly ordering from Amazon, so I don't have to go to town. Okay. Can you see good, Mom? Do I need to?
No, it's right.
Okay.
I think they can see around it.
And you don't want it uniform, because metal wouldn't be uniform, right? And after it dried, I wanted it to have a little bit more shininess to it. I went back and put a little bit more of the silver on mine afterwards. Just a second, I'm just getting more paint. But if you get too much paint on your tray in the beginning, it's like hard to dab it off. So that's why I recommend just starting with a little bit at a time. Like this is my second time I've gotten paint, but literally that's all the paint that I've gotten. And I wouldn't use that much gray paint, except for I can't get less of it out. I buy it in a bulk container, so it comes. But if you want more of a see-through effect like that, probably the Tin Lizzie Gray is probably off of that and it's more just the metallic. This is where you get the combination, is you kind of get the two different colors of gray and you get a little bit better coverage. Is why I use both colors, not just the metallics. Sean, hold on. Sean, I think blue's out back. Okay, sorry, I thought I heard a little dog crying out back, and sometimes our little dash hound will go out back and get himself stuck somewhere. He likes to go hang out with the goats and then realizes that everybody went inside and he didn't follow. Sorry, it's kind of a little bit of a long process. I just wanted you guys to fast forward if you, or if you're painting along with me, I guess it gives you time to paint, time to catch up. I paint pretty much every day, so I might be a little bit faster. Plus I pre-paint some stuff before I get on here with you guys just to make the video not so long. And if it looks like you have too much, you can always go back and go over it with some black in this same technique. I just like the black as the background because it kind of gives you something to build off of. But the layers gives you kind of a neat effect. And it dries really quick. Okay, so there's our first piece. Now we just have these two little pieces left to do. So the top of the sled and the little connector piece. I'm just still dipping in the same paint that's on here. And don't worry, actually the little scored lines on there you can see better. That's where the bolts go. You can actually see them better once you paint them with this. You don't have to worry about when you're painting in with your foam brush of it filling in. You don't necessarily need to see that. It just helps you with the placement for your bolts at the end. Getting close there. Almost done. And I actually have used the same piece of bubble wrap several times. I just washed it off and stuck it in my stuff. As long as I can keep my kids from popping them before I get to them. But you can always pick it up at the Dollar Tree and Dollar General and stuff too if you needed some. Okay, so there's our next piece. And as it dries, it looks a little different, so I recommend doing that one coat, letting it dry a little bit, seeing if you like it or not, and going back and touching up little spots that you maybe think needs more. Again, if you think it has too much, silver, you can always go back and put a little bit of black paint on there and give it a little bit more depth. But I'm gonna go with that. We'll glue our bow together, and then we'll get everything else glued together too. All right, set my paint aside, or my dabbling tray there aside. Actually, we'll let that dry and we'll do the bow first and the shading. So I did a little bit of shading on my deer. What I used was the silver by itself. I did not use the gray, but you could use either. I did the shading like I always do. I've showed you guys before. You can either take a sponge, get a little bit of paint on your sponge, dab it off. This is the easier way, and just kind of go around the edges. Just once again, the shading just, as I got red on it, just gives it a little bit of character. A lot of people would use brown. They wouldn't even use gray. I like to kind of use a shade darker than what I'm using, but when it comes to white, you got to kind of, I usually use gray. But instead of using gray, I thought, oh, I'll use this silver. You can't see it very darkly, but in the different lights, as light hits it and stuff, you can see it. So that's one way to do it. I prefer using the angled brush that you guys have. Dipping your toe of your brush. I just dip this, the point is the toe. Dipping the toe in, kind of brushing it off a little bit on the outside, which I got paint on mine. You only want to have paint on the toe of your brush. And then I just come back and go around the ears and stuff and do the shading. But this is why it's important that you sand it at the end, because if you don't sand it, you won't get that same flow of paint. Make sure your paintbrush is wet. And you're just going to go all the way around the deer like this. The horns, I just came all the way kind of down here to the bottom. You can even do this bottom little peak down here if you want. I shaded mine after I glued everything together and then decided it needed a little something more. So that's up to you, but I liked the silver. You can also shade it with the gray. I'm not going to shade the whole thing while we're on the video. I will show you how I highlighted this though. I took the same brush and I also used silver paint on the leaves, but I only did kind of the outside pieces of the leaves. My hand's always in the way. So I just went along that outside edge and just put a little silver on there, just to kind of brighten it up, give it a little highlight. And then I did my berries too, but I did my berries with white. And that, again, that's just kind of like shading an eye or giving a little added accent. It's not something that you have to do. As you get more comfortable with painting though, it's kind of neat to add different little hints and character to your pieces. I hope by now most of you have gotten kind of comfortable with doing this as we've went along. Now that I'm feeling better, I'm hoping to be able to have some more paint classes too for you guys. So there's how I shaded that. Now let's do the berries. Get some white paint. So this is the same white you painted your deer with. And you can take a small round brush if you have. I know I've given you guys some small round like detail brushes. You can take something like this, or you can use the point of your shading brush. I'll show you both ways so you can do what's best for you. So I'm getting a little bit of white paint on the tip, and I'm just making kind of a little C. It's not even a C, but it's kind of like a little rounded edge on the inside of my berry. Can you see that good, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I promise someday I'll get really good at this videoing. It's just not my favorite thing. It's not my favorite thing to like video where everyone's like, oh, you need to go live. I don't know, I guess I get anxious about it. I'd rather teach in live than I would, like in real life, than I would on a live video. Okay, so that's how I did that piece. I'll show you how I did it with the angled brush. So with the angled brush, I did the same thing. I dipped my toe kind of. You could dip your toe in there. And then just come around and make a little mark on there. I actually find it easier for me. It's going to be different for everybody. And turn your piece. Don't ever feel like reaching over. Turn your piece to where it's a comfortable position for you. And it doesn't have to be perfect or the same, which I have a hard time. I'm a perfectionist, so I try to get better at that. But things take me longer because I will not sell a custom piece unless it's perfect. I want you as the customer to get exactly what you want. I have a long hair sticking out of my brush. If that ever happens to you, I have some great brushes, and then I get a little hair that sticks out like this. I literally will go and trim that off because I want to keep using my brush, but I'm tired of it getting paint somewhere I don't want it to be. Do I have them all? Oh, one more. This is the top. So I try to, I think of like how the sunlight would be coming down, and I kind of hit those spots like a little frost or dew or a little frost would land. That's how I shade mine. I don't like that. Too much of a blob there, but that's what a baby wipe's for. You can always wipe it off. You can always repaint. Wipe it off, sand it off, however you. There you go. So there's your bow all nice and finished. Now let's glue them on our deer. All right. So but see how my bow, the top pieces are a little bit bigger to keep the edges from hanging over. You want the top piece to hang over a little bit so it doesn't show the bottom underneath. Now when you're doing this, the leaves behind there that aren't painted are there as a backer piece to keep your piece from breaking easily once it's put together. So you don't have to have the whole thing covered in glue. You just want like a dot of glue on each leaf. The points of your bow. I don't have glue everywhere. And then you do your best. Sometimes it's easier if you stand up. Do your best to line it up with what's underneath. Now, if you don't get it lined up what's underneath, what I recommend is I take a paintbrush or a makeup sponge and some like the dark brown paint in here, and I'll just go over that spot, and then you can't see the white that shows through the bottom. All right. Something got on our deer. All right, I'll get it off later, but there's your deer, and you'll have done your shading, so this side's kind of shaded over there. I'll finish shading him later. You guys don't have to sit and watch that whole thing. So I'll come back and finish shading him later, and let's put our sled together. Okay, so this piece is all nice and dry. You know what I didn't tell you is see how I got that over the edge? What I did do when I did mine is after I was done, I came back with a baby wipe. It's easier to do it if you catch it before it's dry, but you can even do it after it's dry. And I got that off because I really like that clean burnt edge. So I did that after I sponge painted it. Okay, so the first piece that goes on It's kind of important to put it on in order because or else things don't fit right. So this piece fits exactly on top of here, but it's a little bit bigger so that it covers it up, just like the other pieces. So you're just gonna take a little bit of glue, and I actually put the glue on here knowing the top piece is bigger. And look, I just put a line of glue up both sides. And the hole in my glue is really tiny because I try to keep a bunch of it from running out. I gotta stand up to do this. Sorry, I can't see like sitting down. I'm a stand-up painter usually. Okay. Just takes a minute there to dry. And then I'm going to take this brown piece and I'm going to glue. You'll notice one end's rounded and one end's flat. So the flat end goes up and the rounded end fits along here. On the bottom. Okay? And this is just giving a space for the bracket to land on. Okay. And now this one's a little more tricky. It needs to be in the right place to match this. So, do you see the two places? Can you see in there, Mom? So you see the two circles that are cut for the bolts, or scored. The one that's closer to the end goes on the top. Okay? So what I did was I glued this piece first. I put a little bit of glue on the top and I glued it to the top of my sled. So the one that's closest to is what you want on your top. Okay, and now I kind of slid this out. Oh, this wasn't stuck on yet. So this piece should be stuck on. Okay. Hold on. Sorry. Okay, hopefully it didn't miss too much. I guess I have low battery. Okay, can you see now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so we have this piece glued on. We have this piece glued on here. There's nothing underneath of here and no glue on here. I'm gonna put some glue on here. And I'm gonna put some glue on this rail. And I'm gonna slide this piece, it's gonna be tight, underneath of here. And line that up. So line this, butt this up against it. Let me turn it around. So this piece should, there you go, should be flush with this right here is how you want your, and if you have any like extra glue that seeps out from doing that, I just kind of took a baby wipe and wiped it off. That's why you don't want to put a bunch of glue on there, but enough to hold it because it is a tight, kind of a tight fit. Okay, so now comes the reason why we kept this outside piece. So you can do the backs if you want. I did the backs of my piece because I knew I'd be displaying it on a hanger, probably at shows or somewhere, and I knew the back would be seen. So that's up to you. I just stained all of my back with the baby wipe. Okay, I'm gonna flip it back over, and those pieces can kind of come out as long as you know the order they were in. And you're gonna line this piece up. The center is gonna butt up against here, and it's gonna line right up with your rails. So what this helps do is it helps with your spacing between your boards. So you wanna make sure this piece is lined up between your rails and that it's butted up against here. I start with my center piece and put glue on here instead of trying to put it on the board. Oops, bumped it out of the way there. Okay, and I just give that a minute to dry before I try to put anything else on. I notice when it's paint to paint, the glue doesn't dry nearly as fast. Do the same thing on the next side. And just being careful not to bump this and move it, because it fits in there good. but this keeps your spacing the same between your sleigh pieces. Okay, we're gonna leave that there for a minute and just let it glue. It's important though, if you got too much glue on there, if you're worried, go ahead and take this spacer off because you could glue it on. I know that I didn't, but if you're afraid you did, go ahead and take this off before it dries so that you don't end up with too much glue and actually gluing that hard piece on. We're gonna take a minute and put our bolts on. Okay, so I just put a little dot of glue in the circles. They're all marked for you. And then put my bolts on. Oops. Dang it. I hate it when it does that. I moved it and then it glued. Okay.
It's upside down.
Oh, apparently I put it upside down. So, oh, they're not dry yet. Sorry, everybody. I don't know what I would do without my mom. I get on the video and things just, okay. So, I was wrong. I'll see if I can figure out how to edit that out, but I don't know if I can. Okay, so you still want it centered and butted up against there, but the round pieces go down to the bottom. Actually, my glue's on that side.
It'll work.
Okay, that's why I thought it was like kind of fitting funny. Okay, so your rounded pieces are towards the bottom. If that doesn't stick, I'll go back and put some more glue on it. Okay, so once those are dry, you're gonna lift this piece off, and you don't need this piece for anything. It's trash once you're done. Okay. It just was kind of a spacer for you, so you don't have to use it. So the round pieces go towards the bottom. That's where I messed up. I get on video and then I forget things, sorry. Okay, and then you're gonna, I'm not gonna stick him on yet because I'm gonna finish shading him, but you just kind of line him up wherever you want and just glue him right down there. And then for your string, you can either tie it around this piece, or what I did was I tied this in like 4 knots so that it wouldn't pull through, because I liked that like kind of chunky look that it gave, but it took about 4 knots before it wouldn't pull through. And then I frayed my end, like I took it apart like that. So then I'm going to put my open end through here. And I'm going to come around to this side. And I'm going to go through here. And you could always put a command strip or something on here if you didn't want to do it like this. But to me, like if you had the little toboggan or sled, it would be going downhill. So make sure you get your, I pull it through more, make sure I get this to the end, and then I'll pull it up in a second. Unfrayed it. You can cut it shorter too if you want to. And then there you have your little sled. I'm going to hold this other one up and show you because I haven't glued that deer on yet. So there's your sled piece. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I hope you have a great November, and I can't wait to see you in December. Have a good day.